Also out this week, Steam Boy, which is the new movie by Katsuhiro Otomo, who's the guy who directed Akira. And I was really surprised by this because it's been a long time coming. It's taken something like 8 years to get made, and it is apparently the most expensive. The word people use now, which is a terrible, Japanimation. See how they did that? Took animation.
I follow that word.
And they put it together. Japanimation, yes, but it's not mephitic, but it is Japanimation, And it cost apparently $20 million, which is some kind of record. It doesn't sound very high, but it is a record. It's set in 1860s Britain, and there's a young boy whose grandfather and father, between them, have developed this incredible steam propulsion unit. And one of them wants to use it for evil, and the other wants to use it for good. And it's all set at the Great Exhibition in London. And I went into it thinking, I think it's going to be visually impressive in the way that these things are, but actually narratively uninteresting, because that seemed to be the general whiff on it. And I thought it was really, really exciting. Visually, it's absolutely beautiful to look at. I mean, astonishingly well designed, as you would expect from the guy who's behind Akira. But in fact, the story I thought was very engrossing. It raises some serious philosophical issues in the same way, for example, that the re-release of Gojira does, because Gojira is actually a movie about the problems of inventing things and then them being used for weapons. And, that's very much what Steam Boy is about. And I road tested it with my 4-year-old, who thought it was great. It's PG certificate because it contains mild peril and violence. I love the phrase mild peril. How can you be mildly perilous? But anyway, it contains mild peril and violence.
And what is the mild peril? Because this is
the mild peril is that the world may end because it's being used to make weapons, and there's big battles and huge battles. I mean, really, actually exciting
sound like
battles.
A 4-year-old's film.
Well, he really liked it.
Anything else new?
On the subject of the BBFC, Lower City, which is this Brazilian movie, which is getting great critical plaudits. It's the usual story. There's two guys. There's a pole dancer. They fall in love with a pole dancer. It threatens their friendship. Sex, violence, blah blah blah. Stylishly shot. The guy who directed it used to be Walter Salas's assistant. Fine, I'm not as involved in it as everybody else is. I thought it was very, very ho-hum. But at the beginning of it, there's a cockfighting sequence, and I have a particular problem with cockfighting sequences, and I wondered why it hadn't been cut, and I checked with the BBFC website that it hadn't been cut, and I rang the BBFC and I said, look, my assumption is, therefore, that in fact you've got evidence that they have that they faked it. And they said, yes, we have. And the BBFC quite rightly did what they did. They have got a very big down on actual cockfighting. So what they did was they sought assurances that the scene had been done properly, so that it's all faked and not, no animals harmed, blah, 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 blah. And as a result of receiving those assurances and documentation for it, they passed it uncut. And the good point about this is it demonstrates, no matter how bad a press the Animals Act gets, it actually works. If the international marketplace simply says, sorry, you cannot have scenes of actual animal cruelty. If you want to have fictional sequences of animal cruelty, then go to the trouble of staging it. Use editing. It's like Amores Perros. You don't have to actually hurt animals to have scenes in which animals get hurt.
They're hard to watch that film and believe that you're not watching anything that isn't completely real.
No, well, I was really surprised because it looked very convincing to me, but it turns out that they checked it out. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say hats off to the BBFC. I mean, I know it's not singly them, as they themselves say. Obviously, what happens in America is just as important. But I think that Britain is completely leading the way in terms of this, and I think it's something we should be very proud of.
What else do we have?
Little Children, an ambitious but deeply flawed piece from Todd Field, whose previous film was In the Bedroom, which is, I have to say, a much better film, adapted from a novel. And boy, do you know it's adapted from a novel, because it's one of those films that's got lots and lots of voiceover. I mean, the voiceover is sort of arch and alienated, and very clearly, I know I'm doing a voiceover, but novel adaptations with lots and lots of voiceover can be difficult, and this is one of them. Cast of characters, all of whom are adults who, during the course of the movie, behave like children. Two central characters, Kate Winslet and Patrick Wilson. Patrick Wilson, incidentally, is a fantastic actor. I believe that he's been in some television programme, but I know him from Hard Candy, which is out on video at the moment, and is great. Great date movie. Take your boyfriend to see Hard Candy and he will behave really well for the rest of the weekend. And they are both parents who are unhappy, exercising their kids in a park. They meet up and inevitably they start having a relationship during which they become more childish.
And it all started just from that hug?
It did. It all began just that. Now, meanwhile, in the community, a sex offender has been re-released into the community, and the parents are all anxious and up in arms about this. And there is a sort of convoluted and not entirely fulfilled subplot about the fact that the sex offender himself is really, under the surface, a child. He lives with his mother, like Norman Bates, and to her, he is still her boy. Now, the film takes a great big bite at a number of weighty themes, and it wrestles with some of them successfully and some of them unsuccessfully. In the midst of the sprawling mess that is the finished film, there are some very good performances, there are some very nicely observed moments, and there are some thought-provoking ideas. There is also a lot of hooey, a lot of hogwash, a lot of we need an editor to come in here and really trim this down massively. And it's one of those films in which the whole is less than the sum of the parts. Whilst you're watching it, you can individually admire things about it, but you have to, I think, even with the best will in the world, one could not claim that it hung together as a coherent movie. I do think Kate Winslet is a great actress. I think Patrick Wilson is a really, really good actor, and this and Hard Candy have led me to believe that he's a really fine talent, despite the fact the first time I ever saw him was in that absolutely lousy Phantom of the Opera adaptation, which was just trash, and yet here he is pulling out all the stops and doing really well. So it's an unsatisfying film with things in it that are worthy of a greater vehicle, and I really could have lived without the narration. Do The Protector, because I want to mention this because it's one of the films that I've really, really enjoyed this week. It's by the director of Ong Bak, and also with the star Tony Jaa, who is this martial arts star from Thailand. Okay, the plot is Tony Jaa has his elephant stolen, and he has to go to Australia to get it back.
Obviously.
It's a father elephant and a baby elephant. And in order to get it back, he has to go around Australia and has to beat a whole bunch of people up. One of the trivial things about this film is that it's one of the very few times in which an elephant has gone over a particular bridge in Sydney. In fact, I think it's the first time ever an elephant walked on Sydney Harbour Bridge. So there we go. But the most important thing about it is Tony Jaa he's an incredible martial artist. If you're somebody who's a fan of Jackie Chan, who incidentally has a tiny little cameo, and you liked Ong Bak, which I did very much. I mean, Ong Bak was one of those great, it's not wild, it's not special effects, it's not CG, it's people beating each other up, but very, very balletically. So, in the case of Warrior King, which is just, what did I call it The Protector before? Warrior King, the original title was The Protector.
No, it was Warrior King.
Warrior King, fine. Right. Okay, the original title was The Protector, it's now called Warrior King. There is one fantastic moment in which there is a fight sequence that takes place over 4 different stories of a building, and it's all done in one single Steadicam shot, and it seems to go on for like forever. It's probably 5 minutes, but and during the course of him walking up these stairs and along these balconies, he just beats up hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds of people falling off balconies, people falling into cakes, people going through doors, people going through windows, people going over their heads, hundreds of people. And then he gets to the top and shouts, "Where is my elephant?" And whenever he walks into a room, he'll jump in and loads of people will fall over and he'll shout, "Where is my elephant?" And it's mind-bendingly fun. It was one of those really weird things.
Where is his elephant?
Oh, his elephant's been stolen.
Yeah, but where is it?
I can't tell you because that's the end. When he finds the elephant, and incidentally, the ending is not entirely happy. There's an element of happiness in it. But
where's my dead elephant?
Well, there's 2 elephants. There's the baby elephant. There's the baby elephant. There's the daddy elephant. He really wants his elephants back, and he is willing to beat up a lot of people to get his elephants back. As I said, in this marvellous Steadicam shot. But
when he gets there, they're both dead.
I didn't say that. Did I say that?
You're implying
No,
it.
I didn't imply it. I said that it's not an entirely happy ending. I mean, it has an
One of them slightly poorly.
It has an eco-friendly message, which is don't steal elephants. And incidentally, could they be allowed to run around in their natural environment rather than be in a zoo? Angel A and Renaissance, I'm going to mention these back to back. Renaissance is quite an interesting animation film that I think must be done on the basis if you do live action, then you turn it into animation because it looks very, very photorealist, sort of live action. It's a futuristic setting, dystopian future story, very, very intense noir, black and white animation stylishness. Now, the narrative is a little bit all over the place, and the narrative is one of those classic dystopian future fantasies, which is not terrific. But from an animation point of view, it looks absolutely terrific, and although I got slightly bored by the length of it, and after about half an hour you think, yes, I really like the way it looks, but it needs to move forward a little bit more. And then in the last 40 minutes, it really picked itself up, and by the end of the film, I liked it more. I mentioned that back-to-back with Angel A, or Angelo, depending on how you want to pronounce it, which is the new film by Luc Besson, which is...
Well, it means completely different things.
No, because this is a black and white style film made by Luc Besson. It's live action, but it's all to do with style. It's all black and white. It's all terribly sort of, oh, look at me, I'm very clever, I've made a black and white film. And the story is, Wings of Desire, which we really like. And because when I was out in Berlin, I went up the Angel of Victory monument. Which
you were very excited to be in Berlin, not for the World Cup, but because it was near the Wings of Desire statue.
Imagine that film remade, set in Paris, and rather than these great guardian angels played by these terrific actors, you have somebody who is dressed as, and I'm using her words, not mine, a blonde slut. And that's it. It's the Luc Besson movie with the short guy whose guardian angel turns out to be a blonde slut. And like all Luc Besson movies, you go, okay, is that it? Is that all there is? Oh, no, that is the film. It's a short guy and a tall blonde slut woman. And as I said, that's not my phrase. So please don't, it's the word they use. And you think, why would anyone do that? Dan in Real Life, which is a new movie with Steve Carell. What is it? Is it Carell or Carell?
Most likely to be Carell, however.
Okay, fine. I'm agnostic on the subject of Steve Carell. Anyway, story is, I was going to play you a clip, but I'm not going to. He's a widowed father of a couple of daughters with whom he has some difficulties. He goes off for a family recreational time, which obviously family hell, family altogether, everything badly, difficultly wrong. Diane Weiss is the sort of the mother. Weiss. Who, of course, when she accepted her Oscar for that Woody Allen film, forgot to thank Woody Allen years and years ago, but apparently I'm still holding a grudge. And she's very good. He then goes off for an afternoon and he bumps into Juliette Binoche, and they make a connection. And then when he goes back home, it turns out that Juliette Binoche, unbeknownst to him, is the new girlfriend that his brother is about to introduce to the family. All terrible things afoot. Now, here's the thing. Steve Carell, the thing he does is mawkish, dorky, likeable, huggable, middle-aged guy who everyone wants to kind of embrace, and I feel sorry for him. Juliette Binoche, bless her, what she does is existential terror. She does films in which she kind of looks into the void. She does things like, The Lovers of Point Neuf. She does Three Colours Blue, Hidden, that sort of thing. She's very, very good when she's making movies about the fact... I mean, when Juliette Binoche laughs, you think what she's laughing at is the absurdity of the human condition. Not something that you'd find funny, but something you're kind of cackling even as your soul descends into hate. I mean, she's got that kind of quality about her. That's why Les Amants du Pont Neuf, that's what Leo Carax saw in her. She doesn't do light comedy. And she certainly doesn't do light comedy opposite Steve Carell, whatever his name is, in which she's basically playing a French version of Diane Keaton, which she doesn't do very well. There's a French horror movie. Can I do this in 30 seconds? French horror movie called Them, set in Romania. Couple in a house, night falls, creaky noises outside, horrible scritchy, scratchy noises. Everyone under terrible threat of home invasion. Ooga booga, bad stuff happens. Has a thing at the beginning which says based on a real story. And let me just say this. Whenever you see a horror film that says based on a true story, just remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, okay? Which is based on a true story. The events you're about to see really happened. Well, they didn't involve a chainsaw and they didn't take place in Texas. But apart from that, they're true.
Was it a massacre?
Sort of. No, actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't it was none of the above. And it's the same as the Blair Witch thing. It's a perfectly fine, stripped-down little horror movie. And if you're not a great hardcore horror fan, you'll probably find some of it surprising. If you read Let's Go Play at the Adams and you've seen all the other Euro shockers like Switchblade Romance, you'll find it a little bit repetitive. But it's fine. It's a good, nuts and bolts with very little gore, but a lot of atmosphere.